Most fear is not in the world. It is in the mind before the world arrives. A message has not yet been read, yet the stomach tightens. A meeting has not yet begun, yet the breath shortens. A symptom is small and unclear, yet the mind already walks through hospitals and graves. Nothing has happened, and still, you suffer. This is the common condition of the modern person. A life spent reacting to scenes that are not real. Not because danger never exists, it does. Bodies are fragile. Reputation can be harmed. Money can be lost. People can leave. Illness can come. Death will come. But most fear does not rise from present facts. It rises from the mind's habit of adding a story to facts. It is the imagination that supplies the worst outcome, then demands you feel it now as payment in advance. You call this caution, you call it preparation, you call it realism. But look carefully. If fear were simply a response to what is happening, it would arrive, do its work, and leave. It would sharpen attention when action is possible and quiet down when action is not. It would be proportional, clean, and brief. Instead, fear in most people is sticky. It repeats. It grows at night. It multiplies in silence. It resurfaces in the shower, in traffic, in bed. It survives even after the feared event passes because it was never anchored in the event. It was anchored in judgment. You do not fear the thing. You fear your opinion about the thing. This is where the matter becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. There is a boundary in life that your mind constantly ignores. On one side is what belongs to you, your judgment, your choice, your intention, your refusal to act against reason. On the other side is everything else. Other people, outcomes, timing, the body's fate, the world's decisions, chance. Fear is imagined when the mind tries to control what is not its property. It is the emotional cost of pretending you can own what you cannot. Consider how fear speaks inside you. It does not say something is happening now. It says, what if something happens later? It does not say this is painful. It says this will ruin me. It does not say this is uncertain. It says I will not be able to endure it. Fear is the mind announcing a prophecy, then treating that prophecy as a fact. But you have never lived tomorrow. You have only lived this moment, repeated many times. In this moment, what is happening? The phone is on the table. The email has not arrived. The test results are unknown. The person has not responded. The future is not present. And yet you suffer. So the suffering is not coming from the future. It is coming from the act of imagining the future and consenting to it as if it were real. This is the first discipline, to separate the impression from the judgment. An impression arrives, a sensation in the body, an image in the mind, a thought that flashes. The impression is automatic. You do not choose its arrival. Your mind is a factory of impressions, but you choose whether to agree with it. Most people agree without noticing. They treat every anxious thought as a warning from reality. They treat every inner image as evidence. They treat every feeling as a command. This is why they live in fear. Not because the world is unbearable, but because they have surrendered the one thing they were meant to govern: assent. When fear arrives, it tries to move quickly. It wants to be accepted immediately before reason can speak. It uses urgency as a tactic. It says, decide now, panic now, prepare now, run now. And the mind untrained obeys. But the rational mind is not hurried. It pauses. It asks, what is the fact? Then it asks, what have I added? Then it asks, what is within my control right now? These questions do not comfort, they clarify. And clarity is the beginning of freedom. Look at a common fear, the fear of being judged. In the world, there are eyes, opinions, and gossip. Those are facts, but your fear is not the presence of opinions. Your fear is your attachment to them. You imagine a room turning against you. You imagine a comment, a laugh, a rejection. You imagine losing status, losing belonging. Then you feel shame before shame has arrived. But whose opinion is within your control? Not theirs. What is within your control is this: to speak truthfully, to act with integrity, to accept that others will interpret you through their own confusion. If you do what is right and are still misunderstood, you have lost nothing that belongs to you. What you fear losing is not virtue. You fear losing a costume. You fear losing a story about yourself in other people's minds. But that story was never yours to begin with. It lived in their heads, not in your hands. And still you suffer for it. This is imagined fear, the fear of an external verdict that you cannot author, cannot prevent, and cannot finally own. Another common fear, fear of failure. What is failure? Often it is simply an outcome you did not prefer, a plan that did not work, an effort that did not yield reward, a risk that exposed you. You imagine the moment you fail. You imagine the embarrassment. You imagine the wasted time. You imagine the disappointment of others. You imagine the door closing. Then you shrink from action. But what is within your control? Effort, preparation, honesty, persistence, courage in the attempt. Outcome is not yours. The world meets your will with its own conditions. The world has weather, markets, other people, accidents, delays, illness. Your will is one part of a larger machine. To demand guaranteed success is to demand the world obey you. That demand is the root of fear. Because if you believe you must control outcomes, you will be terrified of anything uncertain. And life is mostly uncertainty. So fear becomes your constant companion, not because you are weak, because you have adopted an impossible job. Return to the proper job. Your job is to bring reason to your choices, to align your actions with what is right, to accept the result as the world's portion. When you do this, failure loses its poison. It becomes information, not identity. It becomes a change in conditions, not a verdict on your worth. Fear also attaches itself to the body. Health fears, aging fears, death fears. Here the mind becomes most frantic because it is most helpless. You can exercise, eat well, sleep, seek treatment. These are choices within your control. But you cannot sign a contract with the body guaranteeing it will never break. The body is not yours in the way your will is yours. You borrow it under conditions you did not set. So if you base your peace on the body's permanence, you will be afraid every day. A small pain will become catastrophe. A headache will become a diagnosis. A cough will become a countdown. But the rational mind says, I will care for what is given, and I will accept what is taken. I will not add a story of doom to every sensation. I will not pretend to know what I cannot know. Fear imagines certainty where there is none. It imagines a future as if it were already decided. But the future is hidden. So the correct stance is neither denial nor panic. It is readiness. Readiness is not fear. Fear is agitation without action. Readiness is action without agitation. Fear makes you mentally rehearse suffering. Readiness makes you practice virtue. Fear says, what if this ruins me? Readiness says, whatever happens, I will respond with reason. This is not a slogan, it is a discipline. Because the mind, when untrained, believes the worst possibility is unbearable. It believes pain is intolerable, loss is fatal, humiliation is annihilation. But you have endured much already. You have endured boredom, betrayal, rejection, sickness, fatigue, disappointment. You have endured nights you thought would break you. You did not endure them because you controlled them. You endured them because the will can bear what the imagination cannot. The imagination creates total ruin. It paints an end to the self. Reality is almost always smaller than the images. Even when reality is severe, it comes in moments, not as one crushing block, and the will meets it moment by moment. So the mind's fear is often a lie about capacity. It is the mind saying, oh, I cannot. But I cannot is not a fact. It is a judgment, and judgments can be revised. To revise them, you must stop treating feelings as final. You may feel fear. That is not shameful. A feeling is a movement of the body and mind. It is nature's raw material. But the moment you say, this fear proves there is danger, you have stepped beyond feeling into assent. You have crowned the feeling as ruler. The disciplined mind does not do this. It notices fear the way it notices wind. It says there is a gust. It does not say the world is collapsing. It observes the tightening of the chest, the restlessness in the legs, the heat in the face. It observes the thoughts sprinting ahead. It observes the urge to check, to ask, to avoid, to control. And then it returns to the central question: what is within my control? In this moment, you control what you choose to attend to. You control whether you add a catastrophe to a neutral fact. You control whether you speak to yourself in exaggerations or in truths. You control whether you act according to reason or according to impulse. Fear loses strength when it cannot recruit your judgment. Because fear is not just an emotion, it is an argument. It argues that the external is essential. It argues that comfort is necessary. It argues that uncertainty is intolerable. It argues that pain is unbearable. It argues that the opinion of others is life or death. These are claims, not facts, and any claim can be examined. When fear says, "This will be unbearable," ask, "Unbearable for what part of me?" The body may feel pain, the mind may feel grief, but the will can still choose honesty, courage, patience, justice, restraint. Fear says, "I will be ruined." But ruin of what? If you mean ruin of wealth, status, ease, then yes, those can be taken. But the ruin that matters is the ruin of character, and that is within your control. No one can force you to lie. No one can force you to betray. No one can force you to act cowardly. They can threaten, they can pressure, they can punish, they can take things, but the final consent is yours. This is the unspoken power you already have, and fear tries to distract you from it. Fear wants your attention outward, toward the uncontrollable. A disciplined mind keeps attention inward, toward the controllable. This does not make you passive, it makes you effective. Because when you are not wasting energy suffering in advance, you can respond cleanly to what is present. Now consider the daily fears that seem small but dominate life. Fear of missing out, fear of being left behind, fear of not being enough, fear of not having the right career, the right relationship, the right body, the right life. These fears are built from comparison. Comparison is a decision to measure your life by standards you did not choose and cannot satisfy. You look at others and imagine their life is complete. You do not see their inner disorder. You see their surface, and your mind fills in the rest with fantasy. Then you fear your own life is defective. But what is within your control? To pursue virtue in your circumstances, to be reliable, to be honest, to be disciplined, to treat people fairly, to use time well, to accept what cannot be changed, to improve what can. These things do not depend on being ahead or admired. They depend on choice. The fear of not being enough is often the fear of not being praised. But praise is not evidence of virtue, and lack of praise is not evidence of failure. You were not born to collect applause. You were born to use reason. So when fear whispers, "You must become someone," answer, "I must become consistent with what is right." Nothing more is required. Now look at the structure of imagined fear. It begins with a thought. A thought is only a thought. But the mind says, "This thought is important." Then it returns to it. Then it repeats it. Then it searches for more thoughts like it. Then it builds a network of worries. Then it calls the network "my life." Soon you have created a second world in your head, a world of threats. And you live in that world more than in the real one. You cannot think your way out by adding more thoughts. You exit imagined fear by returning to what is present and what is yours. The present is the only place you can act. The will is the only thing you can command. So when fear begins, practice this inner move. Name what is happening without ornament. My mind is imagining loss. My mind is predicting humiliation. My mind is rehearsing pain. Then ask what you can do now that is reasonable. If there is something to do, do it plainly. Make the call, prepare the document, see the doctor, apologize, train, rest. If there is nothing to do now, then fear is demanding you do the impossible. Control the future. Refuse the demand, not with anger, with sobriety. I will not suffer what is not here. This is not denial, it is discipline. Because suffering is real and it deserves respect. But respect means you do not counterfeit it. You do not create it in advance like a person spending money they do not have. When you suffer in advance, you pay for a future that might never arrive. And even if it does arrive, you will pay again when it comes. So you have doubled the cost. Fear is an expensive habit, and the mind can break habits when it sees their price clearly. A rational person does not try to eliminate all fear. That would be another fantasy of control. A rational person learns to place fear in its proper role. A signal, not a ruler. The body signals, the mind interprets, the will chooses. If you skip the will, you are enslaved. If you use the will, you are free. Freedom is not the absence of danger. Freedom is the absence of inner compulsion. It is the ability to say, I see the impression and I will not be dragged. This is why most fear is imagined. Not because nothing bad can happen, but because the mind typically fears not what is happening, but what might happen and then treats might as must. It confuses possibility with certainty, and it confuses external loss with inner ruin. Now bring this to your own life. What are you fearing today? Not the label, not the story. The actual thing. Is it a conversation? Is it a decision? Is it the look on someone's face? Is it a future you cannot guarantee? Strip the fear down to its claim, then examine the claim. Is this within my control? If it is, act with reason. If it is not, accept it as part of life's conditions. Acceptance is not resignation. It is alignment with reality. Reality does not negotiate with your preferences. So peace cannot be built on preferences. Peace is built on obedience to reason. You will still feel the pulse of fear sometimes. The body is a body, the mind is a mind. But you will no longer be confused by it. You will no longer mistake it for prophecy. You will say, this is an impression. I do not have to agree. And then you will return again and again to the only stable ground. Your judgments, your choices, your character, everything else is borrowed. Most fear is imagined because the mind reaches beyond its boundary, trying to grip what cannot be held. Stop reaching. Hold what belongs to you. Release what never did.